Okay, good morning, everybody. Let's get ready to read. So please keep it down. I'm reading today. Turn to page 92, chapter 16. I joined the band, Young announced at dinner. I get free flute lessons fourth period. Chota, said Oma, looking slightly relieved as we had suspected. There were no Juilliard graduates teaching flute in Iron River. And also, we play all the football games, so I'll get to watch Opa. All eyes turned to Aboji. His face eventually actually softened the tiniest bit, the way wax softens when you warm it in your hand. He loved to watch Young play her flute and never missed a recital, come hell, high water, or earthquakes. So if she was getting an opportunity to play, even in a dorky school band, he would be grateful. And it would be due at least somewhat to my playing football, right? And we'd be doing something together. When we were toddlers, Oma told us once Aboji could not get enough of Young and me. The way we played together, the way we went waddling around hand in hand. Your father used to sit for hours watching you two play, she said. Chan, you used to pat Young's cheeks with your chubby little hand. It would make us all laugh and want to cry a little bit too. It was so sweet. Field goal practice, team one kicks, Kearney yelled. Coach stood at the side, as he usually did, observing everything like a hawk. I was a kicker for team one. Jimmy kicked team two. We lined up in formation. I waited for the snap. A second later, I was flat on my back, staring up at the sky, sparks of light swimming before my eyes. Stars of pain pulsed from my back, shoulder, legs, and head. Ram stood over me grinning, the way I think a poisonous snake would just after it bites someone. Buck up there, Kim yelled. Kearney. Coach frowned. And Bear Grease, close that hole, would you? Man, if somebody doesn't come straight at you, look around. Krieger, don't use your head to block the ball, even though we know it's your least important part. I've been set up. I was sure of it. Rom wasn't that fast. No way he could reach me with that amount of momentum if I had decent coverage, which Jimmy Bear Grease was supposed to provide. This was going to get interesting. I stayed after practice again while Miko jogged. I worked on shortening my kicking time, which was already short. The shadows lengthened, and it was harder to see. Ready to go in, buddy? Miko asked. Yeah, but hey, could you work on some plays with me tomorrow? Miko grinned. He had a gap in his teeth that made him look like a farm boy, like that was where he would put a piece of hay or his corncob pipe. You really work it. You were the one who recruited me. I can't let you down. We headed to the locker room. I limped, not necessarily because my leg hurt, but because everything hurt. I laughed at the horizontal red line the helmet left on Miko's forehead, although I probably had the same one. A bevy of girl tennis players fluttered by. The lead girl stopped to say hi to Miko, so the whole crowd of them stopped too. By awesome luck of the draw, I found myself face to face with Rainey Scarponi. She had a huge racket case slung over her shoulder. It looked like it could or did contain a machine gun. She was looking sort of curiously at me. Hi, she said. Now was my chance. I had to say something good, something that would get me noticed. I stole a glance at her and saw that she was smiling slightly. Duh, hi, I said, suave as hell. I studied my shoes. Think of something cool, I ordered myself. You look like you could be in an ad for something clean. No, that was ridiculous. Brain, hello, Brain. Are the football players going to be at the party? I heard the other girl say to All Pro. He grunted something unintelligibly and then turned to me and said, Come on, Chan. He waited until we were in the showers. You gotta be smooth, boy, he said. You can't show you're too interested, know what I mean? Yeah, thanks, dear Abby, I said. I realized I had totally blown it. I promised to be more surly next time. 17, page 96. Even when I was in math class, I ran plays in my head, studied the playbook. When I played soccer, Manuel drilled us over and over, so when you got the ball in a pass at a particular angle with your opponent leaving over to take it away, your body knew how to feint left, dribble, and pass without even consulting your brain. I wanted football to be automatic for me. Our next game was away. I must have been one of the few players who liked away games. I got a kick out of seeing the other schools in the area. even if we did have to drive 3 4 hours to get to, say, Croquette, a small town that had a paper mill and smelled like rotten eggs. Today we were invading Moose Creek. All I knew about it was that it had a mental hospital and a detox center. So referring to someone as going up the creek was shorthand for a lot of things. Look, Chan, bullet hole. All pro pointed to a globular swelling in the glass in the door to the school. But the glass doesn't shatter because there's chicken wire in it. See? The wire looked like a bunch of stop signs stuck together or an MC Escher drawing. The glass at IRSHS was nice and clear. For some reason, no one had thought to shoot at it. The locker room was all concrete, covered in lumpy lime green paint that looked like it had been poured on the wall straight from the can. The rubber mats on the floor were curled and moldy. I'm not that picky, but no way was I going to let my bare feet touch that crud. These two won conference title last year, All Pros said. We were in the running at sectionals, but they just stomped us. Do we have a chance this year? I unpacked my soccer shoes and football cleats. Lately, I've taken to putting the soccer shoe on my right foot when I kicked. Miko shrugged. A couple of the really good players graduate, and we still have Rom and Leland. This year is the one for us, if it's any year at all. Kim, you going in, Coach yelled. We had taken an early lead and were feeling pretty good. The plan was to fake a bootleg. The wide receiver and I at halfback would go out as decoys. Leland would then hand the ball off to Jimmy Beargrease on a return. Moose Creek didn't bite. A Mack truck-sized guy hit Jimmy, and the ball squirted out of his hands. The ball skittered downfield, and I dove for it, ending up at the bottom of a very heavy pile. Coach told me to come back out. You might have to punt soon. Don't want you getting messed up. Nice going, Geronimo, snarled Kearney as Jimmy woozily returned to the sidelines. Come on, Coach. No one could get hit like that and not fumble. He was holding his elbow. Would you like a little cheese with your wine? Kearney played an imaginary violin. He always came on too strong, like anchovy pizza. By the half, we were tied. We can do it, Coach said. We have to make the extra push. Look, said Kearney, if we push them back now, we'll just breeze right down to state. We'll be golden. So go out there and finish them up. I didn't have a real idea how important a team Moose Creek was to beat until we lost. We lost by only 1 point. They made a freak 2-point conversion, so I didn't think it was so bad. But there was a deadly silence in the locker room, as if a glass jar had descended and sucked all the air out. No one talked. Hell, no one even breathed. Then Coach spoke. You've made this all the harder on yourselves, he said. His voice seemed to be coming from another direction. We want to go to state just as much as you do, but Coach Kearney and I can't do it for you. We'll have another crack at them exceptionals, but it's going to be an uphill battle. Lousy defense, Kearney snarled. The line, except for Krieger, was an absolute sieve. My 90-year-old toothless grandma could run past you guys. You aren't, man. You're a bunch of pussy boys. We screwed up, was all Pro said to me on the bus ride home. Chapter 18, page 100. All Pro was out sick, so after practice I worked on my kicks and did a few laps until the sun went down. The girls' tennis team must have had a meet because the courts were empty. The locker room was deathly quiet, although it smelled like a pastel of steaming, putrid guys had tropped through, which in fact they had. Added to that was the smell of stuff the janitors used to clean the showers. Some major fungicide, I suppose. It was arcid and burned my nose. I shed my pads like I was a snake molting and peeled off my t-shirt and pants. The concrete floor was littered with torn tape and used Band-Aids. One of them was a Sesame Street Band-Aid, Bert and Ernie. It made me grin momentarily, but I was still tired. I sat down. Even if I had been expecting it, I don't know what I would have done. A rough, mildewed towel suddenly covered my face, my nose, eyes, everything. And a split second later, bodies leaped on top of me, grabbing my arms. Whoever they were strong. I kicked, hit something, and heard a muffled, damn. but someone still had my arms and I couldn't twist away. Arms grabbed my legs, and I felt my jockstrap being pulled down. I tried to kick, but I couldn't move. Then I realized they were tying my ankles with my jockstrap. I hate the thought of being tied up. It makes me sick. Everything in my insides jumped and skittered like tiny fish. I twisted, kicked with both feet, yelled, and got a mouthful of towel for my trouble. A little necessary roughness, huh? It came out barely audible, like the hiss of a tape player. There were at least 5 of them, I think. They got my hands tied. Someone shoved me into the lockers, and I fell like a stone to the wet floor. I couldn't breathe. I twisted my neck until a bit of the towel gave by my mouth. I gasped in the air. I screamed. The cold cement pressed into my hip. Come back here, you cowards! I was tied with some kind of cloth. Once I wriggled my hands free, I saw it was my own sock. There was blood staining it. The jock was still knotted right around my ankles, one of which was beginning to swell, right above the bone. Now that I stopped yelling, I realized it hurt like hell. It was golf ball size now, which meant it would be bigger later. Who did this? I yelled. No one answered. Only the locker stood in silent, solemn testimony to what had happened to me. Chapter 19, page 102. What happened to your leg, Opa, said Young when I limped through the door. I felt like I was going to puke. I wiped out on the street walking home, I said, doing my best to control the shakes in my voice. I think I sprained my ankle. Ha ha. Did you hit your head too? She said, pushing aside my hair. Ooh, this looks terrible. Actually, I fell in the locker room, but don't tell Oma. She thinks football is dangerous. Let me get you some ice. You should have called. Someone could have picked you up. But then I would have had to explain why I was crying. I felt like I had been raped, honestly. Being tied up and left naked on a dirty locker room floor is probably the closest you can get to it. It hadn't been horseplay. People wrestled and did dumb stuff in the locker room, sometimes with a couple of guys ganging up on another, but this was different. It was all I could do to keep myself from breaking down again. It had to be the guys I knew. Who else would have access to the building at that hour? Who else would know I was there? My teammates. What happened to you? Said Coach Kearney when he saw me limp into the locker room. My ankle huge with swelling and an ace bandage. I fell in the locker room, I said, looking around. If anyone was going to have a crisis of conscience, it would be now. No one did. At least not that I could see. Rom was sitting on the bench adjusting his pads. Jimmy sneered. He had a bruise on his nose. Night's going, Klutz, he said when he saw me looking. You're not going to be any good for the team this week. We got a game Friday, you know. Jesus, Kearney was talking as if he thought I had done it on purpose. I'll come to practice and watch, I said. What's up, Jan? Coach walked in. He bent down and gave my ankle a squeeze. I barely swallowed a scream. How'd you do this? I repeated my story. Did Doc Larson's take a look at it? I shook my head. While everyone practiced, I went to see the team doctor. He sat me on the training table and opened up a tackle box that contained all sorts of gauze and cotton nose plugs and bandages and clips for the pads. Looks like a bad sprain, he said. My ankle looked like a ripening mango. It was about that color, too. I heal fast. I think you better have an x-ray. There might be a fracture. My heart stopped. I'll give you a lift to the hospital right now. Is it going to cost money? Did it happen out on the field? In the locker room? Close enough. No charge for players. Professional courtesy and all. He reached over and pushed the hair on my forehead, the way Young did. And where did you get this? Same place. He gave me a look like I must be the most accident dope he'd ever met. How could someone who hurt himself like this ever manage to pull himself together to be a football player? I stubbornly kept my mouth shut. Get a tetanus shot while you're at it, he said. Come on, my car's out back. I hated it, sitting in the x-ray room, waiting for the pictures to be developed. A little necessary roughness, huh? I heard that voice before, for sure. What was going to happen if there was a fracture? I'd be out for the season like Gary, the other kicker. That would be it. That would be the end of my so-called football career. Got a little roughed up on the field, the radiologist came in with the x ray in hand. Even though he was wearing professor type glasses, he looked like he was 12. I guess. My fingers started nervously playing with each other. Was this guy being so cheerful because he had good news? Or was he being cheerful because he was preparing me for bad news? Or was he just practicing his bedside manner? He cleared his throat and shuffled the film, rattling my nerves at the same time. Your ankle's not broken, he said. We just need to fit you with an air cast. But you're still talking 2-3 weeks of rehab before you get to play. I wanted to kiss him. And you're going to have to be careful in the future. I will, I said, practically hopping off the table. Let the Iron River Mafia try to get me again. It doesn't take a whole lot of guts to gang up on one bone-tired guy. If they wanted me to give up and die, that was going to be the very reason for me to keep on going. I was one tough LA hombre. I hated sitting out the next game. While everyone else suited up, I wore my civvies and sat on the far end of the bench reserved for guys like Otto Jensen, a special ed kid who was on the team but never played. Every time we scored a touchdown, I got up, ready to go in for the extra point. Then I sit down embarrassed, glad only that Otto was there to see my mistake. Jimmy went in as kicker. He made one extra point, fouled another. His punt got returned for a touchdown. There is a God, I was thinking. We still won. Chapter 20, page 107. In shop, we were doing woodworking, which was kind of cool. Shop was required for boys, home ec for girls. Next year, we could take automotive repair as elective, but I knew Aboji was going to make me fill up that space with calculus instead. Young, on the other hand, wanted to give up her home EC class to take calculus now. Home ec is so stupid, she told me, and the trig class bores me to tears. Mr. Rippon said no way, however. He had the nerve to say I probably appreciate the home ec classes after I was married, and he called me young lady. Maybe he couldn't resist the pun, I said. People around here aren't subtle enough to pun. They're not very punny, eh? Shut up, Chan. Me, I enjoyed the easier classes. I loved being able to get all my homework done in study hall and still have enough time to flip a paper football around with Miko. I don't think people at Iron River are necessarily dumb. They're just not that tight about school. Some of the kids at El Cadero, a magnet school, were just too intense about studying. The Korean kids were the worst. Jay Moon's dad said that if he got into Harvard, he'd get a BMW. My friend Andy told me once as we watched Jay lug home a wheelbarrow worth of books. So if his Aboji can afford to buy him a BMW, why doesn't he send him to a private school? Don't know. Maybe he can't because he's too busy saving up for the car. I had cut out a football shape from a flat piece of wood. I planed it, stained it, painted on stripes and laces. Now I was using this electric pen that would burn lines right into the wood for the finishing touch. Miko, All Pro, Rippin', I wrote in the middle of the plaque, squeezing in the last letters. When it stopped smoking, I handed it to him. Why? That thing is beautiful, Chan All Pro grinned. I needed to glue something on the back so I can hang it on my wall. Mr. Munchie, he called to our teacher. Do you have those little mounting hooks? Mr. Muncie paused, looked at my work. I beamed proudly back. That's not exactly what I had in mind, Chan, he said, smoothing his mustache. I was hoping you'd make something more realistic. All Pro was working on a bear. A few other guys were doing fish. You mean that's not a real football? All Pro gasped. It looked like something you buy at a state fair, Mr. Munchie said, walking away. I didn't know if it was good or bad, but I assumed the worst. I wasn't worried, though. A Boji wouldn't go ballistic over a poor grain shop, only the classiest state fair, I told Miko. After we won our next game, the talk was that we were all going to go to some big party. All Pro and I went to the parking lot for our ride. Rom was waiting at the wheel of a pickup truck. We're not going to the party in that, I said to Miko, but he already vaulted into the back with some of the other guys. They sat expectantly like a bunch of migrant farm workers, which reminded me of LA. Almost every day, the Mexicans would wait in a crowd in front of the extravaganza with their rakes and shovels and whatnot. It looked like they were going to a rumble or a revolution. But no, a guy or a young lady would drive up in a Beamer and another fellow in a pickup truck. The Beamer person would lean out and go, you, and you, pointing with a finger, and the guys would hop in the back of the truck to be taken to a rich person's house for a full day of farm or yard work. The others would wait until the other people showed up, or if they didn't, they would go home to wait for another day. Manuel did this for a time, he told me. He hated those rich people. Los pinche ricos, he called them. What you looking at, Ram growled, gunning the engine. Come on, Chan, let's go, said Miko. Yeah, okay. I jumped in. I was picking up some weird Swedish accent from these guys. Next thing you know, I'd be yodeling. Ram drove about 100 miles an hour over an unpaved country road, making those of us in the back bounce around like a bunch of beets. I grabbed the side of the truck and hung on. The truck skidded off the road. Duck, said All Pro, pushing my head down. 2 seconds later, I heard a noise like bones crackling. Leaves were falling all around us like pieces of paper. I think we were running straight into a line of trees. What a stupid way to die, I was thinking. Then everything stopped. I looked up. The night was jet black. No light, not even pinprick of stars. I made sure my teeth were intact. Damn, I couldn't help saying, where are we? We're at Rushmore, in an abandoned mine, Miko's voice. Come on this way. A mine pit, I wondered as I followed his voice. Leaves, brush, and some stones moved underfoot. Suddenly there was a light. Warm orange light from a bonfire burning at the center of a huge crater. This place was really a pit, surrounded by walls of rock and a ring of trees. Now we could see all each other in the fire glow. Glad you guys finally got here, said one of the girls, a cheerleader. She still had her short skirt on. It made me feel cold just looking at it. Most of the guys rushed the beer. I edged towards the fire, trying not to shiver. You're lucky we're having this Indian summer, All Pro remarked. Some years it snows in September, and you'd be freezing your little L.A. butt right off. Indian summer. I've been getting plenty frosty in practice, especially in the morning when there was no chance of sun providing any warmth. Otto, the special ed kid, had started wearing thermals under his uniforms, but he was the only one. It didn't take me long to determine that Rainey Scarponi was there with a bunch of girls from the tennis team. I'd have known where Rainey was anywhere. I wanted to go up to her and talk to her, but right now that seemed about as conceivable as flapping my arms and flying off to the moon. I turned to All Pro. How's Gary doing? I asked. I didn't really care, but I sort of felt obligated to ask. After all, if not for him, I wouldn't be on the team. I'm sure he misses us. Miko walked over the keg, which was sunk into the ground. He grabbed 2 cups and filled them up. I don't miss him a whole lot, though, he continued. He's a total weak, always inciting Ram and Jimmy into all sorts of stuff. That kind of person is bad for a team. He handed 1 beer to me. I like having you around better. I didn't know what to say except thanks. I took a sip of my beer, but I didn't suck it all down. I'm not all that crazy about the taste of it, to tell you the truth. Does Rainey Scarponi have a boyfriend? I asked, trying to sound casual. Miko laughed. You still got your eye on her. I don't think she's seeing anybody. She doesn't go out with a lot of guys. Don't exactly know why. She's a pretty girl, but then again, Ram and Jimmy and Gary really got on her case last year. To give you an example of their weakness, like how? They started calling her the sausage queen. You know how her dad owns Scarponi Sausage? But this was totally out of the blue, just to be mean. What a bunch of knobs. I was beginning to believe more and more that Rob and Ginny had a hand in what was done to me. I would have suspected that Gary too, except he was home with 2 broken legs. It got pretty bad. At homecoming, they had this sign out on the field before the game. It said, Rainey Scarponi, Bohunk, Sausage Queen. Did they get suspended or what? Miko shrugged. No one can prove they did it. What? I said, feeling outraged for this girl I hardly had talked to. Miko shrugged. We probably should have done something about it. But do you know anyone who can hold a line better than Ram? No, I didn't. No one came close. Come on, Miko said. Let's go talk to her. Rainey Scarponi had blue eyes, bluer than blue, behind the long, dark lashes that knocked me out. She didn't look exactly excited to see us. She smiled kind of stiffly. Hey, Rainey, Miko said. He sounded a little stiff himself. Have you met Chan? He's the new guy from L.A. Not formally, said. Hi, Chan. Hi, Rainey. Rainey. It was like I heard that name before. But I know I never known anyone named that. Maybe I dreamed about her. Maybe it was one of those predestination, past life kind of crap. Who knows? I already felt protective of her, like I kill anyone who ever tried to hurt her. But the problem was, I couldn't think of a single thing to say again. The waves in my brain had gone dead and flat as Christmas decorations after Christmas. I blame all the times my brain had bounced around in my helmet for this, but it somehow only seemed when I was trying to talk to her. So, do you miss LA? She asked. I paused, opened my mouth, and all this stuff just came bubbling out. It turned into a blab-o-matic, talking on and on about how the air in LA was so dry that we had a cactus on our lawn, how we used to play soccer in a garbage-strewn park, how I miss going to the beach. I guess, do you miss LA was a question I've been dying to answer, but no one had bothered to ask until now. Miko had gone somewhere. Rainey and I kept talking. The autumn moon, which had been caught in the high branches of the trees, pulled clear. It was so bright it looked like a disc stamped out of a new copper. I felt like sitting down and writing a poem rhyming moon with rainy, but first I wanted to keep talking to her for another 100 years. There was a touch on my elbow. My heart nearly stopped. Hey, Chan, an unexpected deep voice behind me. All pro, sorry to break up the party, but Leland's going back into town. Didn't you say you needed to get back in town before 11? I checked my watch. It was 10:45. Aboji and Oma would be coming back from the store around 11:30. Here I was on a moonlit night with a girl with awesome black hair. I was close enough to kiss her. I could have kissed her. Well, I'm pretty sure I had the guts to do it. But now it's too late. I had to go. I wanted to kill myself. Okay.